Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show. Our guest this week is one of the most recognized and respected artists in the music industry today. Since 1965, he has been a member of the iconic band, the Oak Ridge Boys. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show, the man behind the music and the man behind the beard, William Lee Golden. Hi, William Lee. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Rosie and Bill. Great to be with y'all here today. I've heard a lot about your show, and I'm just excited to be a part of it here.
Well, that makes three of us because we are all excited and we've got a lot of ground to cover, William Lee. And we're even going to take a little bit of a trip back in time to those early days in Southern Alabama with your sister Lynette, your grandfather's radio show. But before we do that, I have to ask you perhaps the most important question that's been on my mind now, and it has to do with today. How many sit-ups did you do today?
Well, today I haven't, but I normally do about 200 sit-ups a day. And but I just got back from a road trip here, and
okay.
First day or so, kind of take it easy. But I try to do that, like try to do it 4 times a week, But when I'm on the road, especially, I make it a part of my day. In the afternoon, start getting my focus before I clean up. I move all the things out of the way, and I get a flat place. Normally, at my age now, I like getting a flat place on the bed, and I do 50 sit-ups and catch my breath, and do another 50 and catch my breath. And I do 4 rep of 4. And but I started out, doing 25 sit-ups, and then did 25 the next day, and then doubled it. I did 2 sets. And but then for a while, I build up your stamina, I guess, to be able to do that many in a row, and but it became easier, and the better shape I am, it's always easier to do. If I lay off for 4 or 5 days, then it seems like I have to
Well, you're motivating me, I'll tell you that.
Well, it makes me feel better, and honestly, it also helps me to sing better. It keeps my diaphragm in shape, and when you're singing, you want it to flow out, and you don't want to have to strain your throat to try to get the sound that you're wanting, because you don't have enough support in the bottom, and your diaphragm for it to flow out. But you learn things the older you get, and so I should have been doing it a long time ago, probably. But I've been doing it for several years.
Wow. Well, that's great advice.
Yeah,
I got into it. I got into the sit-ups because of I enjoyed walking too, and I like walking 4 or 5 miles a day. And in the wintertime, it was hard when you'd be on the road at a early Christmas tour every day, and you not know where you're at for as the hotel locations and the streets. And so I found that I needed the exercise, and so on snowy days, I would get the floor and do my sit-ups, do 100, 150, a couple of hundred. And so that's kind of how I started out, is kind of to replace in the wintertime the walking that I was getting. But and I've just kind of evolved over doing it year round. Then I felt that what I would, and then I like to walk sometimes and then come back and do sit-ups too. And that's when I really whip in shape quick, is when I able to do that.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you. And we also appreciate our first and longest running sponsor of the show, Tom and his team of insurance professionals at the Malin Agency. If world-class customer service and doing business with someone you can trust is important to you, give Tom and his team a call today for all your insurance needs. William Lee, I have to tell you, I appreciate you sharing that. And tomorrow morning when I get to the gym, I'm going to see how many sit-ups I can do, and I'm going to work up and see if I can get you. When I do, I'll let you know when I get to that same point. But for now, what I'd like to do is get back to what I said a couple minutes ago, and that's kind of turn the clock back to those early days in your career back in Southern Alabama. You were singing with your sister. You were on your grandfather's radio show. What role did they play early on, your sister Lynette and your grandfather, in the start of your musical journey?
Well, as I look back on it, I've been thinking about that recently, you know, I was down here a couple of weeks ago, went down to the farm and visited with my sister there. And my sister still lives there right across the street or across the road from where our family home is that we grew up in. And I still go back to the home place, and we still have our home place. And so I was there with her, but I was also thinking, you know, that she actually taught me how to play guitar and chords and rhythms when I was 7 years old and 8 years old. I was playing before my hands were big enough to make some of the chords. I would have to abbreviate those chords. And at the same time, she was teaching me how to sing harmonies with her, and I knew, and it was your voice. You make the chord with your voice of what you're making with your hand, you know. And which notes you're hitting, and the harmony part. So the notes that you're hitting around the lead part, but she taught me all those things, and it's through the years, through all the songs that I've been fortunate to sing harmonies on and to be able to sing on through the years with the Oak Ridge Boys. And it's been a educational experience too, because every song you sing, you know, there's something you have to learn the song. You know, you got to learn a new song, and it's becoming part of the songs that you sing. And I've always loved the harmony sounds and the harmony in voices. And
Is that what drew you to the Oak Ridge Quartet when you first saw them?
well, that was I was drawn by the youthful singing at that time that they were. They were a young group of guys that they had 2 albums on Warner Brother Records that I was attracted to and drawn to as far as the music. And anyhow, it was, and I saw they had something that was different than all the other gospel groups. And I thought they had something that had the potential to do what we did. And that was our music to expand and not just sing about one day a week, you know, which most people in gospel music, a lot of people only want to hear a gospel song on Sunday. They're not interested in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday hearing gospel songs. So, and in life is that way too. You know, we live 7 days a week. So, the songs that we sing now are about living all the 7 days a week, and the life that we live, and the love and family. And there's a lot of things that we sing about, but to follow your visions and follow your dreams and follow your aspirations, and it's being determined and not ever losing your focus along the way. It's there's a lot of naysayers. I remember back, you know, when people would say, man, you try to explain what you could see that could be done. And they said, no, but I did not allow negative comments to deter me from my goals and my visions and following my visions. So that's what I found that I've done in life, and it's what I'm still doing. You know, as things come to you, you can see it, and it's things that you know that you should be doing, and it's you're desperate to get into it and do it till it's completed. So and again, you have to motivate yourself in life and activate yourself, and you kind of got to go after what you want in life, and it don't always come in the mail to you.
No, that's
Come.
You know, William Lee, you just said so many
Yeah.
Just important and inspirational things in that you have to keep your focus. You have to just refuse the naysayers, and you have to go after what you want and have that the vision.
Yeah.
Then, you know, the motivation to pursue that vision. When you got the opportunity to become one of the Oak Ridge Boys, what were those early days like? But was it everything you had hoped it would be, or did you see that the vision was going to work out the way you'd hoped?
Yeah, it was, but again, it was, you got to go to the bottom before you can climb back to the top sometimes. And it's, you got to get your foundation. Sometimes you get it when you're down. You get you get a better grounding in life, and you get a better grip of who you are and what it takes. You know, it's just being on time. And if you give your words, you got to be as good as your word. Or as my dad always said, a man will lie to you, steal from you. So you got to be. And he also said that if a man's word's no good, neither is his signature. So you kind of find out to be true along the way too. So, but you know, life is trusting everyone until they give you a reason not to trust them sometimes.
You also, William Lee, you mentioned a couple minutes ago, you talked about vision. And I wanted to touch on that next because in looking back at the history, you know, you joined in 1965. A few years later, in the early to mid 70s, you know, Dwayne and you were joined by Joe and Richard. And then I think it was mid 70s, you start working with Jim Halsey, the legendary manager. And he
Right.
had a vision. And that vision was a little different than what you guys have been doing. Like you said, the gospel music 1 day a week. He kind of had other ideas. And
Yeah.
so, you know, you talked about vision. What did that mean to the band, and how much of a role did his vision play in where things ultimately went?
It was the combination that made it all happen, really, because he was a guy that you could share your visions with, and he could see it too then. And then he would light up, and he said, yeah, and when we do that, then we can also do this and this and this. And it was like he could see what, it was not like it that you were talking to a fence post there. You know, sometimes you share your vision with people that can't see it. They're not, and it's kind of like wasting your breath, you know. But then there's people that can see it. And Jim Halls is a visionary man of his own. And, so he's kind of he's one that believes in visions. And I know he's a visionary person, but it's when visions combine and then all at once you realize it makes a whole different, more beautiful picture is what it makes. And so that's what it was. And his expertise and what he was capable of doing, he knew where we were and what we needed as a group and a band to showcase our talents and to get us with the right labels that could also share that same vision, you know, because we had a group of talent, and what we needed was someone to help to mold that, put it with the right people to get to record the right songs and have the connections to get it to the radio. And Jim Halsey had the connections because he had a LA office. He had Dick Howard running his LA office, and Dick was a high-powered television agent that was running his office. And Halsey focused on taking country music to places that it was not accustomed to go in. And he got us on the Tonight Show. I'm not sure how many times, but a lot of them. But he had people like Roy Clark that Jim represented on the Tonight Show. And Roy even hosted it several times. So but Jim is still around. He's still managing the Oak Ridge Boys, and he's 92 years old. And I saw him this past weekend in Tulsa. So
That's incredible. That's just, I love to hear stories like that. And it sounded like, perfect synergy with him and your group. And, he did get your music out to the mass and more than just, the country audience in 1981 with Elvira. Did you all have
right.
any idea that that would be the success that it was?
At the day that we recorded it, no, we didn't. All we knew is it was such a fun song to sing that day, and was having a great time. And it was we were we were aware of the song because the song was 16 years old at that time. It had been released, and Dallas Frazier wrote the song and had it on an album and had released it as a single, but it didn't get the traction. Kenny Rogers, the first edition, had it on an album, the Something's Burning album, and but again, it did not get the traction and was never released as a single. Charlie Rich had it, Elvira, on the Behind Closed Doors album, but was never released as a single. It wasn't pushed as that, but yet it was an album cut. But then it had been around and cut by different people. But then when Ron Chancey brought it to us and said, "I think this will work, and what we'll do is let Joe sing the lead, and then on these lines here, we'll let Richard do the Papa Mau Maus." And so that's what made the song different than any other version of it. We cut it, did our version. We was in Spokane, Washington the first night we sang it on stage. And this was before, it was about the time they would get ready to release the album. But we went in to rehearse 2 or 3 songs, but that song we decided we was going to drop it in the middle of the show that night, just see what the response. In the middle of the show, it just dropped the song in there. We did it, and at the end of that song, that place exploded. I've never heard such a loud on and on. They kept cheering, would not stop. I mean, just would not quit. We backed up and said, "What do we do? Sing it again." So we sang it again. So it was the same response the second time. Would not stop. We did it the third time. Still the same response. We did the rest of the show. There was nothing got that crowd up to the energy level that they had been on that song in the middle of the show. We wound up singing our last song that was scheduled to do, and then went back and did Elvira one more time, and it was the same response then. We did it again in Seattle the next night. Same response. In Portland the night after that, the same response. On a Monday, we called the label and said, "Hey, we don't know what you plan to release on this album, but this is what's happening with this song out here right now this week." And they chose to follow our lead and what was responding. And if we felt like that it was doing it here with different cities, that radio, it would have the same effect in radio. It was released to country. It went up and just spilled right over it, went right to the top of country charts, spilled over into pop music, and went to the top of the pop charts. So it's a magical song with changing the arrangement of throwing it around and making it a group song.
It worked.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating to me about that is I knew that there were a couple things about that song that I thought were unique, but what you just shared just takes it to a whole nother level as far as the way people reacted before it was even released as a single. But
Yeah,
I believe at the time, I think it was the most successful single in the history of Nashville at that point. And secondly, it also helped elevate some of the prior albums to gold and platinum status. That is just the power of a song unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, it did, and but again, it spilled over, and we've got platinum singles that it did, and that was unheard of at that time for
Yeah.
singles to sell over 1 million singles, you know. But it was selling multi-millions of singles, and then the album came out, and here it goes doing the same thing. So it became like a triple platinum album for us, and still the biggest thing we've ever done.
Wow.
Well, and over the years, William Lee, when you look at it, we just talked about some of the numbers of Elvira, but to me, what boggles my mind sometimes when I look at just some of the numbers and some, over 40 million albums, dozens of hit singles, above and beyond and well after Elvira, Bobby Sue, American Made, the list goes on and on. You guys have won every award there is to win musically: ACM, CMA, Grammy, Gospel Music Hall of Fame, Country Music Hall of Fame, Grand Ole Opry. If somebody was to look, and they would get carpal tunnel trying to scroll down and see them all. And now we fast forward, here we are, 2024, and it's your farewell tour. I'm curious of a couple things with that. Number one, Joe Bonsall stepped away. He's not touring right now. So how are things working out along those lines? Number one, and number two, what's it like having the opportunity to see your fans this one last time?
Well, what happened is Joe was struggling for a year, and then the struggle got worse this past year. And it was something that Joe had to say farewell to at the end of December, at the end of our Christmas tour. And so that threw us into a situation where we had several dates that were booked for this coming year. And it was just talking about a farewell tour with Joe prior to him basically physically not being able to take tour the way that the demanding of touring is, and the climbing up. Anyhow, he was dealing with a physical issue of it's a degenerative muscular issue that he's dealt with and or been dealing with, and it became impossible for Joe to do that. But there's a young guy that God works in mysterious ways. And young guy, Ben James, come recommended to us, and so we brought him in, talked to him. He went to with us, and which and Dwayne told him, you just need to learn the songs, and these are the songs that you need to learn. And we don't know when or how, but at some point we're going to need some help here. And so Ben James, he comes from bluegrass music, and Tony Brown that produces George Strait and Reba McEntire, and has also done, worked with Patty Loveless and Vince Gill, and has produced some stuff with Vince. He knows them and has known them since Vince first came to Nashville, and back when Tony was singing with Elvis, I guess, or playing with Elvis, is when he got to know Vince when he was working with Emily Harris, I think. But Tony heard that Ben James sing. He said, and after he heard him sing, he said, "Man," he said, "you've got a voice." He said, "You've got a voice that comes only once in a generation." He said, "Have you ever had anyone tell you sound like Vince Gill?" He said, "I've never heard someone have a voice like this, Vince Gill." And so, anyhow, he has that quality. We still haven't had a rehearsal, and he still hasn't missed a note on anything that we've done. He's got a great ear. He plays guitar himself, but hasn't been playing on the Oak Ridge Boys show. But he come out of bluegrass. He sang for a couple of years with Doyle Lawson, who's one of the old bluegrass kings, and he also played for about a year or so with Daly and Vincent. Traveled with them, and that's where we actually met him. Was we did a show with Daly and Vincent, and they come on, and Joe gave him the mic to sing a verse of Elvira down at the end of the show up in Wheeling, West Virginia, earlier last year. So then, not knowing at that time that that kid would be stepping right in and doing an incredible job, it's amazing because he's got that bluegrass sound to his voice, and because that's where he comes from. And he also come from gospel music. He loved gospel quartet singing. So, but it all is, like I say, God works in mysterious ways. And we're on this tour, but I tell you, from the things that are happening now on this tour that I've seen, the Oak Ridge Boys, as individuals may say farewell, which Joe had to say farewell. But I think that we should pass the baton. We did not start this group. None of us started it. We all joined the Oak Ridge Boys. And we each one replaced another great singer that was in that spot. So if we're fair, we've been fortunate to have a deep catalog of music that we've recorded. And fans really want to hear these songs. And they'd rather hear the people that sing it, but if they can't, they'd rather hear as many as they can that can sing it. And so as time comes, I think individually that we should, at that point, help find someone that's as good as we are or better and pass that torch to a younger generation that can keep the music alive for a long time. So that's it's the legacy that would fade away, and it's the music that would ultimately fade away if someone didn't keep it alive.
Right.
So that's where I'm looking at it, and so that's where my heart is. I think that the Oak Ridge Boys deserve, and the fans that have supported it deserve, for us to bring the best four-part harmony to sing Oak Ridge Boys songs as we can bring to town. We just finished a new album with Dave Cobb producing. And as you know, Dave's the hottest producer in Nashville. He produces Chris Stapleton. He does Jason Isbell. He did the Highwomen, the four girl singers that are all extremely talented solo artists. And but he also did the Elvis movie soundtrack. It was out a couple of years ago. But Dave Cobb, he loves that music, that retro feel of when rock and roll first began. The people of Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Fats Domino, and Chuck Berry, and Elvis. And it's that kind of music that where music was, and I remember that time. So young producers that's recreating those sounds is it's real stimulating as a singer.
William Lee, I have to interrupt you just for a second because you're mentioning all these, iconic artists and including Elvis. Did you ever meet Elvis, and how did that, music, did that play a big influence for you in your music career?
It did when I was in high school. When I was in high school, it was Elvis hit, and it was when he hit, it was when rock and roll hit. And I played guitar at that time, and I learned some Elvis songs. And at the what at the school parties and masquerade parties and all these other parties, I would bring the guitar and sing "Don't Be Cruel" and "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog" and yeah. But yeah, Elvis was a hero to a lot of people, and he, along with Little Richard and Chuck Berry, and again, it was a lot of great old groups, the Coasters and people that early rock and roll. It was a lot of harmony type groups, It was who was it? Was it the Coasters? Why is everybody always
Oh, yeah.
picking on
Yeah.
Charlie
Charlie,
Brown.
Charlie Brown?
Yeah.
But yeah, group singing was big in pop music at one time. So you never know, it's gonna come around again at some point.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. And, William Lee, in addition to the Oak Ridge Boys and all the great artists and groups that you just mentioned, there's another group that you're a part of that I want to make sure we touch on because I love the music from William Lee Golden and the Goldens. What's it like having the opportunity to make music with your sons and your grandkids? How cool is that?
It's awesome, man. And again, I had a vision to do this back when I was down back at the farm for a week, hanging out in the back fields and where I first riding those tractors and could see where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. And but I was back there, and then I realized, I wanted to do this thing with my family, with my sons and my grandkids, and I couldn't get them all together. I was on the road 150 days with the Oak Ridge Boys, and they were solo careers. And so pandemic hit, we're all sent home, and so we were told, to go home. We were unessential. We were part of the unessential people that they said go home and lock your doors and put on 2 masks and watch your television. So I watched Negative Hate for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I turned all that crap off. But I had to get away from all the hate on television.
Mm.
I got my family together. They said we couldn't get together over 10 people, so I got my family to come over to the house here. We'd get around the piano with the instruments, and we'd sing old songs. On Sundays, we'd sing gospel songs. During the week, we'd sing old classic country songs. And by the end of the week, we're singing good old time rock and roll songs. And we wound up with the family recording 34 songs and harmonizing. They're great, talented musicians. Chris had toured with the Oak Ridge Boys for 17 years playing drums. And he also played rhythm guitar, acoustic guitar with them for a year prior to that. But yeah, to play with my kids and record with them and go out and do concerts with them. We stretch out and with the family and kind of do longer shows maybe, but we enjoy going out and let the band jam and stretching, get these great old songs and stretching them and let the bands do good to the blows. Sit on out and but yeah, we do like 2-3 hour shows, hours.
Well, you must be very proud to have your children and grandchildren inherit your talent and to see them flourishing on their own as well. And then
It is.
Yeah.
And my grandson Elijah, he's on a scholarship at Brown University, and he's been involved with music since he was a little kid, but he's really come on strong. And he sang 2 or 3 songs with us on this albums that we did. And in the summer, he will be touring with us all summer. And then sometimes he flies in on weekends. If we're doing a weekend show with the family, he'll come in and join us. And Elizabeth, my granddaughter, she plays violin, incredible fiddle player, and she's also an incredible singer. And so to have her on stage, it kind of stops the show sometimes. But it's great to have my kids and grandkids together. And again, when we get to playing and singing, we don't want the evening to end.
Yeah, well, I can understand. And for folks who haven't had a chance to check it out, if you go to whether it's William Lee Golden and the Goldens website or YouTube, there's a lot of great videos out there where you can see and hear exactly what William Lee's talking about right now. And some songs will bring back some memories. And you guys put a unique spin on it, and the harmonies really are impeccable in those songs.
Yeah, we got 4-part harmony. There's 2 young bass singers that we use. Aaron Lee McCoon recorded the 34 songs with us. And Tim Duncan, he also sings and tours with us. Sometimes we'll have 2 bass singers out on the road with us, touring together. And the crowd loves it, man. It's like those guys are incredible singers too, and they sing solos, and we back them up. But it's just an evening of fun and taking us back down memory lane as we get to share songs that inspired us to do what we do.
William Lee, before we go, I want to touch on one more thing that's really important, and that's your book, Behind the Beard. First of all, love the title. We can see what inspired that. When you wrote the book with Scott England, was there anything that, say, you learned about yourself that you didn't know, or anything that you were surprised by?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't feel like I was a writer, but Scott had hit me up to write 3 or 4 or 5 times, and I wasn't quite sure. And again, it was during the pandemic that he called me again, and we talked. And I said, "Hey, man, I don't have anything else to do here." So I was down at the farm when he called, and I was down there for about a week or so, and I was going to be there for 4 or 5 more days. And I invited him to drive down, see where I really come from, and just go where it all started. He did, and he come to the farm and met my sister, and she opened up all the old books, and then he talked to my first wife, and she opened up all the old books, and she got into some stories I really was not going to talk about in that book, and about my unfaithfulness and my girlfriends. And anyhow, it's a long story, but I can't deny what happened in my life, and I don't pretend. I probably make more mistakes than most people, but I still love everybody. And sometimes being on the road 150 to 200 days a year, in some relationships, you can put a strain, I mean, people feel like they're missing out on things by sitting waiting, but there's a lot of different things, and sometimes it can make relationships stronger, sometimes it can pull them apart. But I always enjoyed the part that when you're home, it'd be like it's a honeymoon time, and but anyhow, you couldn't wait to be home. But yeah, the book, Scott was good. He would come visit and sit on the front porch during the pandemic. He'd bring his legal pad with his little recorder. He'd set it on the table between us, and he'd ask questions that he had brought on his little pad. And we'd talk for about 2 hours, and then he'd say, "Well, I'll see you in a couple of days." And he said, "Give me a call." And so come over and spend 2 hours, 3 or 4 days a week sometimes. And sometimes it'd be maybe once a week or twice a week. But he'd come with questions, and I told him, I said, man, you're welcome to talk to anybody else that we talk about here. Get their side of the story. In situations, two people can see something and they both see something different, or they remember something different. And so he did, man. I said, talk to anybody, and he did. And that's where, yeah, my first wife, she sure, boy, she told some things that I wasn't going to get into. But again, it's what happened. And I have made a lot of mistakes, but
Well,
sometimes you learn through your mistakes. So occasionally, sometimes I was slow learning though, and I kept making mistakes.
Yeah, but I think that comes with the territory too. You said about touring and being away so long, and it's not an excuse, but it is a reality that it's more challenging to keep the connection and to resist. Listen, when I've been to concerts and I've watched women throwing their underwear up on the stage at artists, and it's like, you have to be at a point in your life where you really are in a strong enough place to resist that. And, it's part of the human condition to grow through and learn those lessons, and like you said, you're not perfect. And maybe you made decisions that if you had to do it again, maybe you would do it differently. But, at that point, unfortunately, that's where you were. And, you learn from it.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, William Lee, I think the other thing that I really respect about you is the fact that, I don't know of any artist that is more genuine, more authentic. And, you admit that you weren't perfect. There's some mistakes you've made, but you said, go out, talk to them, get there. I mean, I don't think there's too many people that would do that. They would just want to tell their side, but there are multiple sides. So again, it's just more evidence to what I've always believed in your authenticity and how genuine you are. And I just want to thank you for that.
I appreciate that, Bill. And I try to be, it's just, I'm who I am because of where I come from. And it's my family that raised me, and they set an example of honesty and integrity. And I never in my life ever heard my mother or my father yell at each other or use a curse word in the house, angry about whatever. Never heard them curse. Of course, I didn't take after that side. I played football, and I had a coach that kind of taught us a lot of gridiron language that sometimes kind of seemed to fit the situation.
Well, I also just want to reiterate everything Bill said. We appreciate who you are first and foremost, because that authenticity comes through really strongly. And your music and the legacy that you're leaving to maybe the next new breed of Oak Ridge Boys, who knows? But I'm sure, that your fans will appreciate this farewell tour, and then whatever you're going to do with your family band.
Yeah, I'm enjoying singing with the Oak Ridge Boys, and I'm enjoying singing with my family. And so it's not just like trying to love two women, but it is certainly pleasing on both hands.
Well, we really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to come and talk to us and share your story and your vision with us and all of your fans. And we wish you all the best on the farewell tour and in all your upcoming music. And folks, thank you also for tuning in. We appreciate your support. And we're going to leave you with a song from William Golden and the Goldens.
Thank you, Rosie.
You're welcome.
And Bill.
Yeah, he would have been counting about that if he didn't get that thing.
Yeah, I know it's a lot easier looking at her than me. I get it. But
Folks, thanks. Oh, go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
The Miller,
No, no,
Miller
that's good.
family is, the Millers are a prominent family in Bruton where I grew up. The high school is of T.R. Miller. It was one of the founders. They were timber barons. And anyhow, I just, to the Millers here, to Rosie and Bill, thank y'all for this opportunity to get to know y'all.
Oh, well, it is our pleasure. Thank you so much. And folks, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Send me the pillow that you dream on. Don't you know that I still care for you? Send me the pillow that you dream on. So darling, I can dream on it too. Each night while I'm sleeping, oh so lonely, I'll share your love in dreams that once were true. Send me the pillow that you dream on. So darling, I can dream on it too. Send me the pillow that you dream on. Maybe time will let our dreams come true. Send me the pillow that you dream on. So darling, I can dream on it too. I've waited so long for you to write me, but just a memory's all that's left of you. Send me the pillow that you dream